Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be outlining what a Democratic landslide in the 2024 election would look like. So, presuming that Joe Biden is the incumbent nominee for the Democratic side, he would likely get over 350 electoral votes in this election. This would be a truly real landslide election, and if this scenario were to occur, it might be the end of the modern Republican Party, because if the Democrats are able to win this much support in the current American electorate, considering that America is so polarized right now, it would be the end of the modern day Republican Party, especially because it would be difficult for the modern day Republican Party to expand any of its bases from this loss, because a lot of those people would be solidified for the Democratic Party. But let's just get straight into the map here. First, we're going to be outlining the safe states for the Democratic Party. So those would be the states of Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Hawaii, New Mexico, Colorado, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and D.C. Maine, the whole state of Maine would go for the Democratic Party, so the 2nd District would still go to the Democratic Party in this case. And now let's get into the safe Republican states. So these are states that would still stay on the Republican side, even though this would be a landslide election year. So Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So these would all be states that sided with the Republican Party, even though this was a landslide election. I forgot Vermont and New Hampshire for the Democrats. And now let's take a look at, Alaska would also be for the Republican Party. Now let's take a look at what the Democrats would win in this 2024 election. They would keep their hold in the state of Arizona. Additionally, the state of Nebraska would still go for the Republican Party, but the 2nd District would still would remain with the Democratic Party. The next state that we're going to be taking a look at is the state of Texas. The state of Texas would flip in this scenario, and as you can see, the Democrats are already at 261 electoral votes, and I haven't added the state of Virginia yet, so they would have actually already won the election by now. All they would need to do is keep their hold on the state of Arizona and win Texas. They could lose Georgia, but they would still win the election here. They would still have 274 electoral votes. They would need 270 to win, and so they would have already won the election, and we haven't even gotten to the right side of the map yet in terms of the swing states. So now let's take a look at the Rust Belt. So the state of Minnesota would stay with the Democratic Party, obviously, and so would the rest of the Rust Belt. In this case, the margins would be incredibly close, but Biden would presumably keep every single state that he won in his 2020 election win. He would keep his hold on all of the Rust Belt. However, in 2024, it would be closer. Maybe Biden only wins the state of Wisconsin by 0.3, maybe 0.4%, but he still wins the state. And that is likewise to the rest of the Rust Belt. Secondly, he would win the state of Iowa. Now, Ohio and Iowa actually are very similar states. They've both voted for the Republican Party pretty moderately, actually in pretty good margins. Ohio went just north of 7% for the Republican Party for President Trump, and Iowa followed suit, and so it would be difficult for Biden to actually flip these states, but in a landslide election year, he would win both of these states, because these states are still swing states. They've been swing states for modern political history, and so he would have to win both of these states. And President Obama won both of these states in his 2008 electoral win, and so President Biden would need these states to have a landslide election. The rest of the states that you see on the map, firstly, the state of Indiana. So President Obama actually won the state of Indiana in his 2008 election win. However, since then, Indiana's been pretty solid for the Republican Party, and it would be unlikely that Biden, even in a landslide election year, would be able to flip the state of Indiana. Thus, Indiana goes for the Republican Party. However, now we've got the rest of these states. Of the 4 states that are left, only one goes for the Republican Party, and that's the state of South Carolina. South Carolina is traditionally a Republican state, and so it stays like that. However, Biden wins North Carolina. Trump only won the state of North Carolina by just north of 1%, and so it's likely the Democrats still have a grasp on the state of North Carolina, and it is very likely that in a landslide election year, President Biden is able to flip this state. and he would need to be able to flip the state in a landslide election because it's doable. It's doable in the current political trajectory in which he's on, and so Biden would need to win this state for his political landslide. The next state is that Biden would need to keep his hold on the state of Georgia. He won this state in 2020, and he is likely to actually win this state in the 2024 election, but this is a Biden political landslide, and so obviously he keeps this state, and he keeps the state of Florida. Many people think that now Florida is a solid state for the Republican Party. However, it's not. Florida went by about the same margin for the Republican Party as Michigan did for the Democrats. So if you think that Florida is solid for the Republican Party, then Michigan is solid for the Democratic Party. But that isn't the case, because the Republicans actually have a shot in Michigan, and the Democrats do have a shot in Florida. However, Florida is by no means safe for the Republican Party. 3% is good in the state of Florida for a win. However, that is able to be overcome, especially if this is a landslide election year for the Democratic Party. So, at the end of this election, Biden and the Democrats have 413 electoral votes to the Republican Party's 125 electoral votes. Now, if this scenario were to actually occur in the 2024 election, it would be brutal for the Republican Party, because if the nationwide presidential election looked as bad as this did for the Republican Party, so would the senatorial elections, so were the gubernatorial elections, and the House elections, because the Republican Party traditionally does well in those inferior elections, in the gubernatorial elections, the senatorial elections, and the House elections when they do well on the presidential level. Usually, when President Trump is on the ballot, he is able to spark something and keep his Republican base voting Republicans, no matter which race they're actually voting for. And so, if this were to happen on the national level, that means that Trump would have actually lost a lot of his base. It would likely be another Democratic trifecta in Congress as well, if this were to happen on the presidential level. But, as you can see, Democrats win this election pretty handily, with over 410 electoral votes. We haven't had a landslide election this one-sided since the Reagan era, in which the Republicans won consecutive landslide elections, but this would truly be the end for the modern Republican Party. The Republican Party would seriously need to reconsider and rewrite itself as a party itself. It would need to rewrite its ideology, because obviously that ideology wouldn't be working. It wouldn't have worked in the 2024 election, and it wouldn't work in the 2028 election and elections succeeding that. And so it would be difficult. This would be a real slap in the face for the Republican Party if this were to occur. But this is a very unlikely map. It's unlikely that the Democrats are able to actually pull this off and get north of 400 electoral votes, but it is good to sometimes contemplate these scenarios and see what might actually happen if something goes a certain way. But thank you all for watching, and goodbye.